Hello. Hi,
Hello.
everyone. Is everybody ready to discuss Locklands and, see what everybody thought about
Yes.
it?
I'm
uh,
proud of us for finishing this
yes,
series.
yes. It was good though. Like I enjoyed this series so much. It was so good.
Yes, I agree. I very much agree.
Didn't it feel like it kind of got like a little bit science fiction oriented towards the end, like a little bit, like way advanced?
Yes. You know what? The last book gave me vibes of Mad Max Fury Road. And then
Mm.
also there was that YA series with like cities that were big like cars that just traveled around. I don't know what it's called. Immortal Engines?
Okay. Yeah.
That's the vibe I got, except with
Mhm.
ships. So
Yes.
that was my vibe. I
Yes.
was like, got like adventure going on, and yeah, like very sci-fi.
Yeah. What'd you end up rating it?
So I gave it 4 stars. So book one and two are five, and this one
Mhm.
I gave like four, but like a very strong one.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I would say probably like a 4. Like it wasn't I don't feel like it had like the same exact caliber like as the first two books, but I feel like it was very, very close, you
Mm,
know? I don't know. This was so heartbreaking. Like the whole
it was. I think you're right. It's like it got progressively less like funny and lighthearted, and it kind of got to me in the last book. I was like, oh man, this is kind of heavy and
Mhm.
depressing, but really good as well. So
They were like, I don't know, I feel like the author was prepping us was setting us up for like to be shattered at the end of this.
yes, yes, I like how it was like kind of bittersweet. It's kind of cool.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh. So, did you have a favorite part for this book or
Um, ooh, don't know. What about you?
um I would probably say like I loved the parts like where we got to explore more of Clef's history and
Mm-hmm.
like we got to like learn about, who like what was her name? The
His
evil.
wife.
Yeah.
Oh, Valerie. Valerie.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
so crazy to me and I'm like, "Oh my god, like it's all in the family now." You know?
Yes. Yes. No, I was gonna say the same thing actually. Like all the flashbacks, I know
Mhm.
quite interesting. But I'm sucker for like this happened 1,000 years ago, and now we're dealing with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, but like I don't know. I almost like wish like that we would have gotten to see a little bit more of like what was behind the door.
Mm, yes. It was kind of like we were building up to it.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I finished this book like a week ago. Why do I like have no thoughts? But we were like building up to it, and then
Mhm.
it was kind of like, oh, we're not seeing like God or what's behind the door. It's just
Yeah.
like I don't know. Yeah, maybe that was a little bit like a tease that was a slightly anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
now
mean,
do it. Yeah.
sorry. Um like I mean like that there was like a ton of like action I feel like throughout it, but like I feel like that was like a part like that was lacking like that we didn't even get a glimpse or a feel for like what was behind the door or like what it looked like even.
Yes. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. It was quite a philosophical like exploration. What do you think about like how they build the society? I thought that was really interesting. Like,
What towards the end or
yeah, yeah, the whole like mind sharing.
I feel like it was going in that direction because if you can communicate with people like telepathically, like the only like reason you have to, do it verbally is for people like that are not actually
Mm,
connected to you. And as a society, like to me like that seemed like the most efficient like way to do it because a lot of societies are based on efficiency. So
mm.
I feel like it was headed in that direction. I'm not entirely surprised by the fact that it got to that point.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I feel like it was interesting because it's kind of like we got the positive side of mind sharing the protagonist, but then Valerie or Taven, something like
Hmm.
that, the evil one, was kind of doing it, imposing its will on other people, and that was also mind sharing. So that was kind of interesting as well. And then we saw
Yeah.
like both sides of the like, sides.
Mhm.
with being good and bad.
So he stuck to his paperbacks. That's okay.
That's okay. I hope it doesn't disappoint. I'm like glancing at the comments, and it seems like we are not in the majority.
Mm-mm. No.
Hello, everyone. Didn't you say
Yes.
hi?
Yes. All right. Hi, Sasha.
Hello.
We got Larissa here.
Hi.
Hello. Eval Coaster.
Hello.
Hello. And then Cindy. Hello. Yeah. I
Yep.
mean, it kind of felt like I don't know. Remember like that scene at the beginning? I think it was Into Darkness, like where like they had like the entire like world, like where it was like like the kind of like like the world itself felt like a little indigenous, but like the technology like just outside of it like didn't, like the Star Trek
Mhm.
portion of it didn't. I kind of got like that, like it was almost like the city was very, like I want to say like early 1900s it felt like, but like the technology itself didn't really match it. It just kind of felt like there was like a combination of like elements in that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how it also sped up the innovation because obviously they could all share minds and like how that exploded kind of innovation. So like
Mm-hmm.
things they could do in book one versus things they could do at the end of book three is like completely millennia apart, but they only did it in like a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was quite interesting. And how
Yeah,
that kind of made it more sci-fi because it was so elevated.
yeah. I kind of liked that though, because like we got to see kind of like glimpses of the city evolving.
Definitely. I really like that and a bit at the end where they kind of tell you how they evolved. Although it was really weird. I was like, wait, they went off planet somewhere together because they were so evolved. It was interesting
Yeah,
because like we only got the perspective of a character who was separated from it, so we never really got to know it very well,
yeah,
which I guess maybe the offer was like, I want you to impose whatever you think
hmm,
utopian future is onto this or something.
yeah. Well, so I was kind of like surprised, like though that Gregor survived that.
Hmm. Me too. It took me a good like minute to be like, wait, he's fine. But it's kind of it was nice. At least he got a happy ending,
Hmm.
like being with everyone
Yeah,
in
I mean,
his fire.
yeah, he definitely deserved it. He definitely deserved that ending. Let's see.
I'm assuming everyone hated it. I wasn't there.
Yeah. Hello, cool gamer.
No.
Let's see. Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious about Larissa's feelings on why she feels that way about it, like what her opinion is so far of the book, and
Mm.
why it's going to be a 2 or 3.3 stars for her.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's interesting that you think it's boring because it is kind of like non-stop action.
Hmm.
So I was kind of like, oh, I'm tired because we're doing so much, but it wasn't like boring in a sense. There's always something happening.
Yeah.
Ah,
Oh, to read it physically, audiobook. Read the first 4 to 5 chapters 4 to 5 times, but nope, I can't retain the info at all. Mm.
fair enough.
It definitely has a different vibe from the first two. Big
Especially
time.
from the first one, I think.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
there was a big jump, I feel like, too, between Shorefall and Locklands, like a huge jump.
100%. Yeah. I
Hmm.
do think that for me, first book was my favorite, second book was my second favorite, third book was my third favorite. So it was
Yeah.
like, not that it really went down in quality of writing, because I think the quality of writing remained and quality of storytelling did too.
Hmm.
But slowly, like we took away elements that I enjoyed about book one,
Yeah.
like Clef being the funny guy and him and Sassy going on all these adventures. Whereas by book three, she's like an older woman and can't really do anything. And it's like, well, oh, actually, this is a thought I had. I don't know if you would agree. I feel like book three was Bernice's story. It was kind of told from Bernice's perspective, and
Yeah.
Sansa really took like a back seat.
Mhm.
Whereas my favorite thing about book one was Sansa and Clef's relationship. Um, and Sansa as a character, I really liked. And I feel like Bernice, this can be explained away with the mind sharing, but I feel like her personality really changed between book two and three. And I feel like
Yeah.
she kind of took on Sansa's characteristics. So there was like this weird mashup of both characters,
Mhm.
which is fine because I guess they're sharing the mind. So it's like you're going to be influenced, but I didn't quite enjoy her character as much as I like. I really liked how different she was in book one and two. Like she was more like introverted and kind
Yeah.
of kept to herself, but here she was just like more like the YA protagonist or adult protagonist, whatever, but the protagonist.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, you're right though. She definitely felt like more like Sancha's role.
Mm.
Um, because I feel like at this point, like we had to have somebody fill like the space for Sancha, because Sancha can't do everything that she was able to do before
Mm.
because of how much how like much her age has been, you know, shortened. Like her
Mm.
lifespan's been shortened, and she's aged so much. Like they kind of describe her like as practically being an old lady in this.
Mm.
Um, and so she can't do like all the things that she was able to do before. So we
Yeah.
needed somebody who was going to be able to fill that role, of being able
Mm.
to go and, because I feel like if this has been like book one, it would not have been Bernice in the Citadel area. Like, it would have been Sancha, but she wasn't able to do it.
Yeah. 100%. But yeah, I guess I wish if he was going to make Bernice the main character, essentially, he would have kind of kept her more like she was, but he kind of like wanted to have his cake and eat it too, like
Mm-hmm.
do something to Sansa so that she can't do it herself, but they still have a protagonist who feels essentially like Sansa
Mm-hmm.
still doing it, even though it's not. And like
Yeah.
again, like it can be a bit explained away with the mind sharing because they basically became the same person, so that's fair enough. But I just kind of missed having Bernice be like her own person.
Yeah. We are Borg. We will assimilate your biological and technological distinctness to our own resistance is futile.
This is from Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was like, so, was it Femke or you or maybe Sasha? Someone mentioned that we saw mind sharing in Aurora Rising,
Mm-hmm.
but there it was evil, but here it's like the good version, so that was quite interesting. Same as here, actually.
Well, I don't know. Like, we didn't like really get a chance like to see it from Valeria's point of view,
Mm,
but they kind of alluded like that she kind of like was one big mind herself. And I wonder
mm,
like if it was two sides of the same coin, like that was the
mm.
evil version of like what, could be done for evil when you're using it to weaponize, and attack versus just living peacefully and coexisting.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, I've got quite a few more comments down here. I didn't realize. The end felt like the encounter the Enterprise had with the species that evolved beyond their physical form.
Mm,
Yeah,
yes,
definitely. Did you ever read Scythe by Neil Shusterman?
I did, but I didn't read book three, so I don't actually know
Yeah.
how it started
Well,
and
I
finished.
won't spoil anything, but like I will say like that one had an extremely science fiction ending,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of like the progression of like like as far as like the stars and everything, because definitely like the first book in that series was my favorite, and it progressively got like
Mm,
more away from like the original idea of the story, and it kind of evolved on its own, and I feel like that's what this did too.
yeah.
It also doesn't harp that Stardic, the next generation. I'm guessing like that TNG's the next generation is played on the
Mm.
background right now. Oh, Larissa. I don't feel connected to the characters anymore, and the whole situation is very unfamiliar because we skipped so much time. Yeah. And I feel like all the technical stuff is way over my head. I can understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was not expecting to pick up 8 years later. That was a lot.
Yeah, it was interesting because it's like On one hand, I kind of like the time skip because it, like everything changed so much. So like we got to see the city, how that evolved, and that was interesting to see. But I would agree that the characters didn't really feel like themselves
Mhm.
because they were like 8 years in a war or older.
Yeah.
So I understand. But like I said, like to me, Bernice was almost like unrecognizable, and even Sancha, like I don't feel like she's the same character, and that's on one hand, like he's done the time skip well because if they didn't change at all, that would be weird. But I do also feel like I was attached to those versions, and now they're like completely different.
Yeah, definitely. It's I know, and we missed so much. Like we even missed Sanchia's and Bernice's wedding. Like they kind of alluded to it like in the book, and I was sad like that we missed all of that stuff. Like we could have like even like I mean I feel like we should have had like a small like summarized history of like what happened like that previous 8 years.
Mhm.
Like at the beginning of the book. Like and then be like, hey, 8 years later. You know.
Yeah, I actually feel like we missed all of their relationships. So like I'm happy for them, but I don't really care that much because they got together kind of at the end of book one, the very
Yeah.
end. 2 years time skip, so we didn't see their relationship develop. They just
Hmm.
were in a relationship. 8 years passed. They've been married for 8 years. It's like we weren't there at any point. We barely even saw it begin. So it just felt like, yeah, like I would agree. It's like great for them. I'm happy there's like a sapphic couple smashing it, and I did feel happy that they got kind of reunited at the end, kind of. But I'm not that interested in their love story because I've not seen it.
Yeah.
So I'm more invested in Sancho and Clef, if I'm being honest. So like that's the relationship I'm
Yes.
invested in.
I love Cleft so much. And did you get like the feeling like that he was trying to like redeem himself with his for his daughter, like with her?
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. Because at the end of book two, we kind of learned that the reason he's calling Sansa Kid is because his son liked to be called Kid. Whatever. So
Yeah.
that was really cute. But like you said, it's never really been about the son. It's more been about the daughter because it sounds like he was a very crappy father to his son, to be
Yeah.
honest. Um, but it was so interesting. Like even Clef changed so much. And like when he was in his armor, I could not stop thinking about like murder bots, and that's the vibe I kept getting. I was like,
Yep.
he's become murder bot, except
Mhm.
he's a key, which was fun. But yeah, it was very different than what he was initially.
Yeah. Let's see. I feel like we also went from heist with special abilities, keys, and some smart manipulation of objects to fighting the villain vibe. I just don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in this book, I feel like Sanchez like special powers literally did not matter at all.
Mm-mm.
I don't think he played any kind of role. We kind of
No.
didn't see it at all. And like was actually was fascinating. It's a lot of fascinating like conversations I feel like we touched on, but we didn't like dive in. Is to me what's the most interesting part of the book is like we said the flashbacks, but then within the flashbacks, like Cleve and his society, and the fact
Yes.
that they could see scribing of like normal stuff. So it was like they could see behind the veil of like creation. I don't know. That was like hella interesting, and I don't feel like we really explored that. We kind of were like, oh, weird, cool. That's how he sees now as well. And I guess I like that he kind of it was explained how he sees, even though he doesn't have eyes.
Yes.
But I don't. I feel like it could have been bigger.
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely agree like with that though. Because it definitely like wasn't I don't know, it definitely like just wasn't what the first two were.
Yeah, yeah. It was like I feel like the technological jump made it a little jarring because, like, kind of like Sasha said, the first book was like just like having slightly smart, like being slightly smarter than objects and thinking loopholes and logic, and it was kind of fun. Whereas this one, I felt like we didn't really get an insight behind the logic of stuff. It was just like, wow, these massive floating cities and these massive mechas and they're fighting each other, wow. And it was more like that, whereas is it just took such a big like scope that that's not really the story we started with. So I think that just made it a little bit jarring.
Mhm. Your time skip and sharing of minds and the time change the characters too much, in my opinion. Might have been better to show that over time. I agree. I definitely agree.
Maybe like one more book or something in between, or just longer books. I don't know. To
Yeah.
show that 8 years, like at least a little bit.
Mhm. I mean, they were able to do it like at the end, like where like they, like did like the summary of like, all the
Mm,
things like that, for like those many years. They could have done that at the beginning, like, made it a prologue. And hey, this is like where we ended up. Like this is what happened since, you know.
yes.
And it
Yeah.
wouldn't have felt so jarring, I don't feel like. We would have expected it.
That's true. Yeah, it took me like a good second to like for my brain to be like, wait, it's been 8 years. Like when you
Mhm.
start reading, you're like, what's happening?
Sounds like we have a generation of authors that grew up with the next generation.
Yeah.
Let's see. I love Scythe easing the toll, and yep, the storyline changed, but I felt it was way more progressive and natural than here. I don't know. I mean, I definitely agree with that too, because it felt like they prepared us for the ending on the toll more than they prepared us for the ending on Locklands.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
there was some foreshadowing like in the earlier books of Scythe, like about like what was going to happen very lightly, but it was there. There was no
Mm,
foreshadowing on this at all, like how this was going to end.
yeah. Yeah. To be fair, to me, like the ending itself, like I didn't have a problem with it,
Hmm.
but kind of how we got there felt very like, okay, we're here now. We're doing this now. It's like
Yeah.
completely different what we were doing 2 books ago.
Hmm. See. Although I know this is a sci-fi fantasy series, I think this was a little bit too science fiction for me. Yeah.
Mm,
It definitely, I don't know, like with all the technological changes and everything, it definitely like went from fantasy to fantasy science fiction very
yeah.
quickly.
No, that's very true. Yeah.
Clef in his armor felt like Gundam to me. Yeah. I think Robert Jackson Bennett was more focused on tying up the plot points and completely missed this opportunity with the characters' relationship. I definitely
Yes.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I would have loved to have seen Sanchez and Bernice's wedding. I'm still super bummed about that. We got glimpses of that. Glimpses.
Yeah, exactly. I do think like he's a great writer for this
Mhm.
series at least, but I think relationships are his weakest point.
Yeah.
And the strongest relationships in this series to me were Clef and Sancha, and then maybe Bernice and what's the old guy's name?
Orso?
Yes. Who
Okay.
I loved, and I was so upset he wasn't in this book. I
I
know we need to
know.
have loss and all that, but I'm like, but kill someone else, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, Also, I feel like they just added kind of random characters in this book, and we were meant to care for them, but I don't.
Yeah.
Like that girl, that something Dia.
Delia. Was it Delia?
I think her. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just like Bernice is just so preoccupied with her, and I'm like,
Yeah.
cool, but I've never seen this person before in my life, so I don't really care. And Claudia was there, but I feel like she was and didn't have that much to do.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like we have maybe a couple like we have like three strong characters that were developed like Clef and Birdie, Sancha, and we had more, but they kind of slowly got taken away from the board, and we just like filled like replaced them with people that I do not care about.
Yeah. Um, and then I thought, what I thought was like really interesting? Greeter. They made Greeter
Mm,
non-binary, which I thought was really interesting. Um,
yeah,
which made sense too, because Greeter, like, like was an entity of many people, not just one person.
yeah, it was. No, you're right. Yeah, I think I really did like Greeter, and
Mhm.
then the one that was all about scribing. What's their name?
Design? Was that design?
Design. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the concept's super interesting and it's like really cool. Like she did greet her a lot. So yeah, that was cool.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
And I kind of like the concept of greeter too. Like they had to have something like that could, manage the society kind of like and connect everyone.
Mm.
So I kind of like the
Mm.
concept of greeter, but like once again, it was just like that jump and it felt so foreign because like it like like we were going through this whole like the whole first two books, like there was all these characters and then there was all these characters that weren't kind of there, like you said, and then we got like all these new characters like that were just products of the technology that they had developed like from the previous 8 years.
Yes, yes. Yeah, they like developed so much stuff while we were away that like shaped their like
Mm-hmm.
society. And it was just like, yeah, it was very interesting because even like characters that we knew, like, oh, I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but Claudia's friend that we knew, Guillermo?
Yeah.
Um, and he was there. So it's like, I thought it was there inside design, but turns out not. Actually, he's died, but like his thoughts are kind of still there. So it's like, again, interesting, but very like, oh, he just died off screen 3 years ago, and we never. And the characters are kind of over it now because it's been many years. So it's like you never got to like be sad. And even also like, to me, I cried when he died, and then I didn't even see him being grieved because it's been an 8-year jump. So like the characters dealt with it already.
Yeah.
Whereas where we were left, he just died. And I was like, oh my God, no. And then it felt like it didn't really have any repercussions because they obviously got over it in the 8-year jump.
Yeah. Yeah. We were definitely prepared for the change in Scythe. Definitely.
Scythe was so good when I read the first two books. To be fair. I
Mm-hmm.
need to continue. It's just there was too much time between them and I forgot.
Yeah. I love that series, and I know like they just came out like, with a short story collection that I want to investigate, but like that series like was sci-fi from the beginning, and like less fantasy, and then this like
Mm,
went from fantasy to more sci-fi. I feel like the whole progression like wasn't consistent, but
yeah.
when I read the City of Stairs book, like this is kind of like what I was struggling like with this first book in City of Stairs, because it felt like there was like all like these really good concepts like independently, but then he tried to mesh them all together and it just didn't quite work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's see. Delia was adopted by Bernice in a way, so I got her attachment, but that would have benefited from the extra book or novella. Yeah, definitely to see like how that attachment developed
Yeah.
from a kid. Because didn't she say like that she got her like that she met her like when she was like really young, like 12 or 13 or something?
Yeah, they gave like a Cliff's note on her backstory. So it was like they found her and I think she was an ex-slave and she wouldn't like talk to anyone
Mm-hmm.
until they like integrated her mind. So that was all interesting. And actually I really like the idea of the novella, like the 8-year
Yeah.
jump novella to like
Mm-hmm.
get us into everything. Cliff's notes. Let's do this. Or like even like a novella that was like a year after Orso died, and then kind of we're meeting Delia and we're dealing with Orso's death and we're developing this society, and it's like just like a day or a week or something, and then at least it's kind of like tiding you over emotionally. Yeah.
Kruger had a creeper feeling to me because she gave everyone a feeling of liking them, which felt like a love drug to me.
It was an interesting concept. Yeah, I do get the creepiness a little bit because
Mm-hmm.
it's just like the imagining this entity that's like, because I think because we're reading the book, it's easy to just imagine that Greeter is just like this visually one person. But actually, what actually was happening is like at any point you could turn around and someone could be talking to you and it's Greeter, but it's like they all look different because it's different people. And
Yeah.
that is kind of mind-boggling. But interesting.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, like that last book, like I was reading it like last night and I'm like, they're really gonna do this to me, huh? They're really doing this to me now. I was so upset because I'm just like, you make it to where Bernice is the one who's making the sacrifice.
Mm,
She's disconnecting herself from everything. And it was like, and they described it like so perfectly, like how this was all happening. And I'm like, we're doing this, huh? You guys are we're
mm.
really going there. It was bad. I was like, "This is not this is not emotionally okay, like, I'm gonna need therapy after this book or something," you know?
It was really sad, and especially
Yeah.
later when she just like how lonely she was, because not only did she give that up, and then also Sansa disappeared, so it was just like her. And then when
Mhm.
Gregor left her, I was like, "You snake!" So
Yeah.
mean.
I mean, I feel bad that he did that, but at the same time, like, I mean, I feel like he was just trying to find, like, his own connection because, like, they had discussed, I think I don't remember, like, if they had actually discussed this, but at one point, I feel like they discussed that, like, like, through, like, that, mind, like, like, that connection, like, he would be able to heal better, like, emotionally
Mm,
from, like, the things that he had gone through, like,
mhm.
being, like, brainwashed by the sigils and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
s
Yeah, I'm happy for him, but I just was like I'm happy for him, and I think it was good decision for him, but I was like, "Oh, poor Bernice,
I
man.
know.
So sad."
She was left completely alone, and
She
it was just awful.
was. And, like, no one could even talk to her after, like, a while,
Mhm.
which I thought was, like, weird, but interesting. Yeah, the whole ending was, like, a little mind-boggling. You're like, "Where have they gone?" Yeah, it's like they transcended their physicality and
Yeah.
went to the stars. And it's funny because Bernice, well, we don't know how old she's at the end, but she's still alive, so it's not like been hundreds of years. She only could have been like a dozen or maybe more, but yeah, so it's like,
Yeah. Mm. I feel like, I mean, it made me feel like there was, like, 20 something years that passed, though. That's what it
mm,
felt like.
yeah. I feel like still it's quite fast. Like this society didn't. Well, I guess they live somewhere now. We don't know
Mhm.
where, but they didn't like exist that long.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 years, 30 years.
Mhm. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I feel like that was, like, one of the things, like, that was kind of like the progression, like, was so I'm conflicted because of the jump, like, with the
Mm,
progression. But at the same time, I feel like Foundry side, like, progressed quite quickly, like, as far as, like, what they were learning from the sigils and, like, and how to
mm,
manipulate them. And then I feel like Shorefall, like, was a really quick progression, like, as far as technology goes. But I feel like the 8-year gap, like, really kind of ruined the overall progression because things were moving so incredibly fast. I feel like as far as progression, like in the first two with the sigils and like what they learned from them, that by the time we got 8 years later, like it was almost completely alien.
exactly. And I think, yeah, and it just changed so much, like from something that you can probably wrap your head around to like such like big cosmic, existential things that it was kind of like, oh well. Yeah, it was kind of like hard to understand, so you kind of emotionally like disconnected from it. It's like how Tafti was saying that he really likes thinking about the logic of what's happening, like,
Hmm.
and trying to figure out his way out, whatever. I feel like he couldn't really do that in this book because it's just like the city floats, deal with it. It's kind of like that. And like this works because it just works. you know?
Hmm. Yeah,
So
definitely. Mm, I know.
I'm conflicted. I feel like we've been like nagging on this book, but I still really liked reading it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I definitely think like I love the concepts. I love the idea like that language can be used to manipulate reality,
Mm.
you know? And sigils like were kind of like a language unto themselves, just but they were very technical language, like you had to make sure like that you had everything just right because otherwise something bad could happen, like something's going to blow up or something like really bad's going to happen. So it was almost like an art and a science at the same time, like knowing how to
Mm.
manipulate all that. But it was just, I don't know, it was definitely like just way too radically different, like no tone. I feel like the tone was completely like different,
Mm.
like from the first two.
It was, especially from the first one. I feel like
Hmm.
the second one was kind of a bridge between them, as in like the tone already people were, and we were all saying, and everyone was commenting that already it's changed so much, the tone.
Hmm.
So it was already jarring. But I feel like if you put book one and this book, you're like, this is two completely different, like stories with different characters, different tone, and different science and magic system or whatever.
I liked how Clef's story ended, but the others didn't do it for me. I don't like the higher life form thing. Yeah.
Get that. I do feel like that's the kind of thing that'll either work for you or not. Because I don't know. I think maybe I would have preferred to see them actually have a working society on Earth. Because I'm like, what is the Earth just abandoned now? I guess it is. I don't know. So it's like, oh, all right.
I wonder, like, though, like, if this is because I wonder if they were trying to, at the end, if Robert Jackson Bennett's intention was to manifest what Clavides? No, it wasn't Clavides. Crusaders? Is that
Yes, Crusade. Yeah,
Yeah.
Clavides is Lef's name, I think.
Yeah. So Crusaders, like, I wonder if like this is like what Crusaders had in mind for society, like to fix society himself. So I wonder, like, if this is kind of a redeeming of his story arc, like in some ways, to obtain that kind of utopian society that he was looking to do, and also to kind of connect Valeria's, like, perception of trying to get the gods' attention to come fix things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because, like, Crusaders, when he like saw their society, he was like, wow, so it can work. And I've done hundred thousands of years and I couldn't get it done, and you guys got it done in like 8 years. So yeah. But then again, like, it's a working society, but then we can't stay on Earth. We've gone somewhere else, right? So it's kind of like the world's still empty.
I like the concept and Clef's story and most of Sanchez's and Bernice's, but the rest fell flat for me, so only 3 stars for this one. Yeah. It's unfortunate, too, because it had such a strong start, like the first 2 books.
Yeah.
The whole "sorry, mother, but we evolved beyond this world we're leaving" makes me want them to go to the other side and find Azathoth and deal with that insanity.
Yeah, we need a new series about the evolved humans dealing with whatever's next.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the whole ending was a little bittersweet anyway, with like Sansa and Bernice's story. So maybe even this is meant to be like not entirely perfect, and it's like a big question mark, right?
Yeah. Did you watch Inception? You've seen Inception, right?
Yes, I have.
I felt like the ending of this was like the top spinning around, like somebody said hello, but who was it? We wanted to see Sancha, but we never got the confirmation.
Yeah, it's kind of like think what you want, because also like I was thinking like, okay, so even if it's Sancha and she's come back, are they gonna live in this desolate Earth, just the two of them? Also, how did like Bernice live just by herself and be fine? I mean, I think if you think about it too hard, everything's kind of like falling apart. But yeah, no, I know. And it's like, oh, are they gonna be together on the other side of the door, whatever that means?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. No series will match Malice.
See, I didn't like that series as it progressed. So maybe I'm just not a serious person. This is why I never finished series.
My thing is, I don't like being so overwhelmed by there being so many characters that I'm more concerned about who's who than, the storyline itself. And I felt very stressed out reading Malice because it took me 3 books to get the characters down. By the time I got the characters down, we were at the last book. But it was good. It was definitely good. It was just like too much I feel like it was too distracting for me. Like there was just too many characters for me to keep track of. With with a bunch of names like that were, some of them were very close.
Yep.
But I did enjoy it. I know Sasha loves that series. Rightly so. It's a good series.
I love book 1, 2, and 3 and 4 again. So it's kind of like
Crusaders, obey me and I will fix it. Sancha and Bernice, let's be friends and work together. Strange how Sancha's version worked.
Yeah, he was like, who's your ruler? And they're like, we don't have one. That's the whole point. So they were like, democracy, but make it psychic.
Yep.
Phil.
Definitely. But she made like a good point like that. You can't like really be a tyrant over somebody if you can feel all of their feelings and feel everything that they're going through.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, their whole society is like one of those things that just increases empathy.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think kind of how they took down Valerie, or kind of, was just like letting the entity feel everyone's emotions, and they were like, "Oh fuck,
Mhm.
we fucked up." And like, I thought it was interesting that the people kind of came back after being under the spell, so they could like be rehabilitated. I like same as Gregor, I guess. But I thought they would have been lost cause, but it was nice that they weren't.
Yeah.
It also means they were trapped there and like aware, so that's even grimmer.
Mhm. Yeah, that's I mean, I thought it was kind of an interesting concept, like, though, like, speaking of being trapped there, like, the Crusades, like, I guess, like, he had spent, like, mentally 4,000 years in prison.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
It was interesting how much longer it was than he already lived. So that was like, can't even wrap my head around like how long that was.
Mhm.
But in my head, I was like, well, his only memory for being in prison is just being in a black cell. So you can sort out which memories are from prison. But I know it's more complicated than that. It was just like, if memories were linear, like so you can store
Mhm.
them, it'd be okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
it's interesting, yeah, because we were both like 4 stars, great book, but then we talked about it more. We're like, it has flaws.
yeah. I know, I think for me, like, I think I ended up giving it a 4 stars because I loved the first 2 books so much, you know?
Mm,
And I love the fact that we were reintroduced, like, to the same type of concepts, you know? I think I grew affectionate towards the idea of it during the first 2 books, which is, like, why I didn't, like, didn't completely tank my rating.
yeah, I would agree. I think the strongest thing was definitely the ideas and like the flashback stuff and like the concept of God and the concept of the world being made out of like sigils and all that. That was super interesting. Um, but by the end I've grown super detached from all the characters basically, maybe except for
Yeah.
Clef. Even Sansa, I feel like, because she was barely in this one and she was like 20, well, in mental age, not, but like physical age, and how that took a toll on her, like 20 years older. You're like, I don't really know you anymore.
Mhm.
So I see what everyone's saying.
Yeah, definitely.
But I am curious, like, what the next step for the offer will be, because from what you said, it sounds like already City of Stairs and this one was like quite a big improvement. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to see, like next series, maybe it'll be
Mhm.
even better.
In spite of how I felt about City of Stairs, though, I do, like, wanna revisit it because I can't remember the name of the character, but each book is told from a different point of view on
Mm.
that series. And supposedly the last book in that series is told by my favorite character that
Mm.
I met during the first book. Like they're all character like all 3 of the characters like that have the different points of view are in the first book.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I
So,
might give it a shot. I'm definitely gonna read the author's new thing. I don't know if there's anything planned, but if he comes out
yeah.
with something new, I do want to check it out.
Yeah.
Um,
I think
yeah.
he's good at semi-meshing like very conflicting ideologies, like a very conflicting um concepts because there was like
Mm,
a lot of I felt like there was like a lot of conflicting concepts like in City of Stairs too.
yeah. I mean, yeah, clearly he has very interesting ideas about
Mhm.
existing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, ooh, what are you gonna come up with next?
Mhm.
And he's a good writer. Like it's all very engaging. It's just the characters I think it would need to work.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Yeah, hopefully next series we pick whatever that might be.
Mhm.
Every one of us will love every book.
Yeah, I know. But it kinda makes it interesting, like, that we all have, like, we all basically, like, feel like, the same feelings about it, but we all come up, like, with different star ratings for it,
True,
you
very
know?
true. Yeah, because I guess we all like agreed with everything everyone said. I was like,
Mm.
there's no unfair criticism, really. I think
No.
everything's spot on. It's just I didn't care that like it didn't impede my enjoyment because I love ideas, so I don't
Mhm.
mind that much being detached. I guess if I find the idea fascinating.
Yeah. I don't know, like, I mean, I have a couple, like, bigger series that I hope to get to next year. I just don't know that we'll be incorporating, like, those into the, um
Yeah, I think we still need to decide, so we'll do a big announcement.
yes, we definitely do. And if you guys have any suggestions in our comments of stuff that you might like to read, we are always looking for suggestions, you know, like we can factor it in, like, you know, like to what we decide to slim the list down to. So if you guys have any suggestions out there in, you know, internet land,
Hit us up.
yeah, or even like on Twitter or something like that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because we'll
Um,
probably read what, like 4 series if it's similar as this year.
yeah, depending like on how big the series are, because I know like a
Mm.
couple of like the ones like we discussed like were really big books in them, and they might take 2 months to do, like versus you know just the 1 month, because some of those books are so big. I know like we discussed at one point like that James Islington series, like the A Shadow of What Was Lost, and that last
Mm.
book is like I think like over 1,000 pages, and that would not
Ah!
be fair for us to have that one book, you know, for that 1 month. Like like I feel like we would have to have like a halfway point and then discuss the halfway point and then
Yeah.
continue on like with that last book.
Oh God, I don't remember last time I read a 1,000-page book.
Yeah, it's huge. It's big.
Probably like Priory of Orange Tree or something. And I
Yeah.
listened to that because I couldn't face it.
Mhm.
My fingers hurt. Oh God, you old.
Yeah.
I think 14 books might be a bit too long. That will take us over a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Oh.
Damn.
Well, yeah. And those are both really big books, but I've heard so many good things about that series. I would love to see us do that one, but I don't, you know, like it really depends like on what, you know, everybody
Mm.
else wants to.
How many books
Um,
are there in the series?
3. But
Oh, okay, that's
but
not
they're
that bad.
but they're all pretty big. Like the
Mm,
last book is a chunker. It's huge.
far enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was like there's that Blood Song trilogy by Anthony Ryan too, because we haven't really touched on anything by Anthony Ryan. Um,
No, we do have like quite a lot of ideas. I really like
yeah.
your idea about Daughter of Moon Goddess. Because I feel like that's like
Yeah.
an easier thing to read. That's a
Mhm.
little, it's chunky book, but it's not that big and it's not that complicated
Mhm.
from what I've heard. So,
It was an easy read, and it felt like it read like YA, but
mm,
it's geared towards adults.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely am gonna read it next year. So it depends whether we read it together or I read it by
Mhm.
myself. But yeah,
Yes.
I feel like I'm gonna love it. I just know I'm gonna love it. Not to put it on a pedestal.
Yeah. No, I love that series like though. It's also a dense, hard sci-fi with military and political plots, and a lot are over 800 pages. So as a triple, no. Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel
you're
like that would
too.
take us 8 months to go through. But like if there's like like if there's
Yeah,
even if there's 3 books for like that, because it would not be fair to expect everybody to read 800 pages a month. That's a
yeah.
lot.
With everything else too. So
Although those Malice books were really like the faith like those were really
they
thick
were
though.
chunky, but they
Yeah,
did read quite fast. I
yeah,
did skip through a lot of the military stuff. I was like, oh, I don't care.
yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like I know like that we discussed like the Lifelike series too by Jay Kristoff, because it's like a YA science fiction. A
Mm,
lot of people seem to really like that one. I know. We have some ideas, but I mean, like I said, if you guys have any ideas out there, you know, like that would be you guys think would be good for this book read along stuff. I'd like to hear about it. Anything else you guys want to talk about? What else do we have? So I guess we probably should say like, are we planning on doing like? I know we're not reading anything in December, but are we planning on doing like reading sprints at all? Like just to get together and hang out?
I'm definitely up for it.
Yeah, me
So
too. You know, just like to get some like reading done and you know do like a mid-month check-in or you know something
yeah,
like
that'd be
that.
lovely. I'm
Hmm.
definitely up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Um.
need to figure out a weekend that works everyone.
Hmm. Definitely. So we may see you guys still like in December anyway, even though like we're not reading anything. We're gonna be using December to try to figure out what we're reading next.
Yes, we can announce it on our reading sprints.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess like the consensus is that we should definitely do reading
Good.
sprints in December.
Good.
That's
Everyone
awesome.
needs to get their ass together and get their reading goal done. So I feel
Oh,
like a lot of people want to do the
I'm not gonna make it this year. Like I think I'm only like at
Oh,
50 books for the year, and my goal was 80. So unless I sit down, because I have some mangas, like there's like this manga like that's 27
okay.
books, and I'm like, well, maybe I can just go ahead and sit down and read that because I've been meaning to read that. That would like help me meet my goal, like quickly, but it just depends.
I mean, that was lower.
I
Like
know.
my goal was 50. But mangas sound nice. I'm like I've read 109 books this year,
That's
and I'm
awesome.
somehow one book behind schedule.
What?
Because my goal was 100, but I've read over 100 books like 2 3 years in a row. So I was like, I don't feel like I'm challenging myself, um, and it wouldn't have. So I put at 122 because last year I read 121. So I was like, one more, it's
Yeah.
2022, and now I'm one book behind schedule. Oh God, that's okay. Well, hopefully when I go home for Christmas, I'll read more because I have time off.
Yeah. That's amazing like that. That's a lot of books.
It is. Audiobooks help
Mhm.
greatly. Otherwise, be like half that. Ooh,
Wow.
that is
That's
that is
awesome.
very impressive.
Hmm. Yeah. I know like work's been like super busy, so like I just don't have the time I did before.
I know.
Woo
I literally
woo.
just read on my commute. Like, congrats, Sasha.
Yes. Meeting
Yeah.
those goals. Yes.
Woohoo. Yeah, I'm definitely failing all my other goals though. Like, read a nonfiction a month and all that. I'm like, nah.
I
I did
actually
read like two in November. Sorry,
no, it's okay. You read 2 in November?
and
Which
from
ones?
Cultish,
Oh,
which
I
is
love
about
that one.
cults.
I love that one.
And I read a very good one. What was it called? Let me have a look. Oh, White Feminism.
Okay, I think I've heard of
That
that
was
one.
really interesting too.
No,
Yeah.
I read Cultish, like I listened to Cultish like on audiobook towards the beginning of the year. It was so good.
Same, yeah, I listened to the audiobook. It was pretty good,
Mhm.
yeah. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
I know I think I've read like quite a few nonfiction books like this year. It's more towards the beginning like than the end though. Uh,
Mhm.
but like I've been reading like a lot of poetry too lately.
Nice. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know you have your TikTok series where you read poetry that
Yeah.
you wrote.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
I haven't like filmed like that in a while. I have like all of this stuff like though because I'm still writing. I just haven't had the gumption to film. I usually do it like
Mm,
I usually do like around 10 or 15 videos like at once because it's easy,
mm,
short
yeah.
videos. But I just haven't done that, and I really like want to start making videos again at the beginning of the year for my YouTube channel too. I'm hoping like that I have the energy to do that.
Come back.
Yeah, I'm really hoping like I have the energy to do that. I just haven't like the
Mm,
last year or so, but I'm feeling better like because like the last
that's
year's been
good.
awful. So yeah, and I'm taking more time off of work next year.
Yes, do.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, we're going through like a big project at work. So
Hmm.
I worked before, like it's a Sunday, but I was working before we had a call. I was like, I'm gonna go on a weekend away. I'm gonna take time off. It's gonna be amazing. I'm gonna, but I think that's why I've been reading so much. I'm just like, I'm so stressed. I don't want to look and think, so I'm just gonna sit down and read before bed, so I don't dream about work. Just been semi-successful. Did have a weird dream last night. Yeah.
Mm,
Ah,
yeah.
all right. Seems like no one has anything else.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, keep a lookout for us doing our sprints next month. I'm not sure whose channel they're going to be on or when, but keep like if you guys know our Twitter and stuff like that, then keep track of us there. We actually did start. Um, we are discussing like making sure like that our Instagram's like up to date too, because with everything that's going on in Twitter, we're not like really sure like what's going to be happening like with that yet, because it's still kind of a mess over there after everything. But keep an eye out for that. And if once again, if you guys have any suggestions about books that you're interested in reading, let us know so that we can work on getting like the list together and taking a vote on it. Okay.
Mm.
So thank you guys for joining us today. I mean, I joined this discussion. It was, fun listening to everybody's, opinion on this book and, the ratings and stuff. And it was nice seeing you guys.
Yeah, it was very fun.
Mm-hmm. So we're probably going to go ahead and end the live stream here, I guess. And you guys have, if we don't get a chance to talk to you before the new year, have a good Christmas and a good New Year, okay? If that's what you celebrate. Otherwise, everything else in between. So
Bye.
bye-bye. Ending broadcast, awkward wave, ending.